I started performing. My entryway into performing was actually dancing. Um, my parents were part of this Colombian cultural organization. It was just a bunch of Chicagoland Colombian families, and we would have different events on holidays and stuff. But one of the really special things about this organization called the Casa de la Cultura Colombiana, which is now no longer around, but we had a folkloric dance troupe and we also had a choir. So I come from a very musical family. My mom and all her sisters sang. And as a very small child, I was maybe 4 or 5, I started dancing with the folkloric dance troupe, and then I started singing with all my family. All my family was in the choir. So the arts was a family affair, and that's what we did every weekend. Every weekend on Fridays, we would take 2 buses down to Northeastern University for dance practice, and then on Saturdays, we would have practice for our choir, and it was like my dad, my mom, my uncles, my aunts, and we would perform all around the city. We would do the Christmas Around the World thing that the Museum of Science and Industry does. We would always have a gig there every Christmas and sing there. And so that's how I started. And then when I went to high school, I was also in the chorus. I also danced, did all the musical theater shows, but I was really scared to audition for straight theater. I would never audition for a drama. Because I thought, oh, I'm a singer, I'm a dancer. I didn't consider myself that kind of actress. And which is so strange because the bulk of what I do now is very dramatic work. And so I took a little detour because I was the first in my family to go to college, and I was a good student. I got a full ride scholarship to U of I. And I thought, well, I have to be a doctor or a lawyer. Those are my 2 choices. So I thought, okay, I'll be a doctor. And so I started school, pre-med, majoring in psychology, and about halfway through school, I realized something was just not right. And so I dropped out, took some time off, went back a year later, and was still just not feeling it, dropped out again. And it was around that time that I met my future husband, Anthony. And the first night we met, he had gone through a similar thing. He had gone to Notre Dame, finance degree, did the corporate thing, and was like, this isn't me, and had just started taking acting classes around the time I met him. And the first night we met, which was actually 2 nights ago, 19 years ago, March 31st, he asked me, he said, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with your life? And I said, God, I really miss performing. And no one had ever asked me that before, like what I wanted to do. And it kind of came out of nowhere. It actually surprised me when it came out of my mouth. And Chicago is such a generous city to artists with opportunities that I said it and just started auditioning for stuff. And did go back to school and finished my degree in psychology, which makes sense. Like I've always just been fascinated with human behavior, and just started auditioning and kind of never looked back. I started writing in the last few years, and I think it came out of necessity to really want to express myself in a different way and be more in control of the stories that I was a part of. It's something that I tell actors all the time, that in between shows, well, I always say a career, in a theater career, it's just riding the waves. You're riding those waves when you're busy, 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 and then you're down at the bottom of the wave when you're like, oh my God, am I ever gonna work again? You know, what am I doing right now? And I've always encouraged actors in between those, you know, when you're riding those waves and you're down there, you have to create your own work. You have to. You know, it keeps you sane, it gives you fuel, and so yeah, I started doing that a few years ago, and you know, the first piece I created, which was like this little short piece, and it was based on watching my grandmother die. I saw her, you know, minutes after she had had a stroke, and she had been making rice, this ritual that she had performed, you know, how many hundreds or thousands of times in her lifetime. She died making rice one morning, and I found her on the kitchen floor with raw rice scattered all around her body, and she looked so peaceful, like she looked 20 years younger, and I'd always been really scared of death, and that image stayed with me for a few years, and that was the inspiration behind my first piece, because I really wanted to explore just that last moment of your last breath, really, and what happens there. And I've done some really, really great projects in my life, but for me, that was the most artistically fulfilling thing I'd ever done, and I was like, okay, I want more. So I've, so far my family has figured prominently as inspiration for the things that I've done.